Hey gang, what's going on? Juan here to provide my review for the Smackdown Live that took place on August 9, 2016. Now, we are still working on our format for how we really cover Smackdown. We know that everybody appreciates what we do throughout the podcast, which is available Tuesdays. We talk about Raw and everything else that happens in WWE. So what we're hoping to really form this into is sort of an individual one-person format podcast, not like one of the unboxings that I do, or sometimes we like to do SRTs. This is going to be a little bit more laid back, so it's just going to be sitting down, really talking about that. We're also open to suggestions regarding the format itself. If you like this, definitely let us know, and regardless, drop a comment letting us know what you thought about Smackdown. Now, right off the bat, I have to say it was a very enjoyable Smackdown. It cannot compare to last week's. Last week's, we had the in-ring segments between John Cena and AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler. Now, this week, John Cena and AJ Styles were part of a tour, so SmackDown was a little bit thin in that aspect. Now, we got a video package, which I'm not going to really get to, talking about AJ and John Cena. It's basically recapping, rebuilding in a really good way. WWE does a tremendous job with their video packages, but everything else that took place, I will talk about right now, starting with Eva Marie. Now, Eva Marie is the hot topic of discussion, and for good reason. Now, in the past, people talked about the fact that she can't wrestle. I don't believe that has really changed, but WWE finally did change with how they go about using her. So Ryan covered in his review last week that Eva Marie was supposedly injured with a hamstring injury or something like that. And then she was, all good and ready to go. She got out that corner, and understandably, that takes a lot of effort. You go from here to here, and then wow, things hurt. You want to cry. But then now this week, it was good. She overcame that. But then her clothing got a little bit jealous. Her clothing sort of went, I think I'm going to be the nagging thing this week. And I love this because WWE knows that she's not a five-star athlete. She has a better physical, presence than most people out there. But regardless, when it comes to the ring, I don't think she's able to really convey that emotion that we require, we like to see in wrestling, right? So the next best thing is hype up what we don't like about her. So you have this crazy announcer. So you have fake facts about her. So you have her show up, and then she gets to never wrestle Becky Lynch. You build up that frustration. You build a storyline out of not overusing a match. How many times have we talked about in the podcast and different platforms that WWE has this tendency of, let's do this match 10 times and then on pay-per-view? You remove that completely. There's actually an intrigue of what will Eva Marie even look like when it's time for her to actually start wrestling. So I really love that. And then that led to a match between Alexa Bliss and Becky Lynch. And then Eva Marie later on came out. She caused that distraction. But she did confirm that on week 3, next week, it's gonna happen, the spectacular debut of Eva Marie. Now, I'm just gonna leave it there because if you watch Talking Smack, I just gotta bring that up right at the end of this review. Up next, let's talk about the tag team division. Now, I love me some American Alpha. They are one of the main reasons that I love the takeovers in recent history. The chemistry they have with Dash and Dawson, the revival was outstanding, and I'm hoping they're really able to transition and make that happen in the main roster, and I really do believe they have that potential. Now here, they got a really throwaway jobber match. Now the jobber match is on Raw. I get it with Strowman and Nia Jax. Now I'm still not sure why they're doing this to this extent with American Alpha. I think that you can afford another loss, I should say, over the Vaudevillains. But these two guys, come on now. When you have all these tag teams come out, you know exactly what's going to happen. And it's not in the Strowman fashion where it's fun to see just somebody get destroyed. These are good guys. You want something different out of that. Now, it's not horrible. It's not the end of the world. I prefer something else to happen that's not just, well, let's do this and then a brawl and then that's it. I know they don't have the tag team championships on SmackDown. That's going to change very soon. Dana Bryan talked about that on Talking Smack and multiple other platforms at this point. But regardless, it is something that I hope they clear out really quickly, because even though they're trying to make it seem like SmackDown has a bunch of tag teams, you have all of them come out at one time here, and it's kind of like, okay, so you're really not leaving a lot here. So what's going to happen next? I just hope it leads to an outstanding match with American Alpha versus I don't care who. I really don't care who. Put him up against the Ascension, actually. I know some of you may be laughing at me right now, but the Ascension deserves that opportunity. So we're sort of transitioning from one former NXT thing to another. This thing with Carmella has got to stop. Now, you know, I'm sure many of us, and I'm sitting differently, so you know I really do feel something different about this. We saw this thing of when Enzo and Cass got called up to the main roster, right? Like there's footage of Triple H talking about this and, you know, them getting all emotional. But then Triple H says, you know, Carmella, she's got to stick around in NXT because, you know, she's got potential. She's going to build her own thing. If she's going to build her own thing, stop having her do the thing with Enzo, the whole opening. I always thought it was cringy, and I know that word is often overused, but I can really apply it here. It's cringy. I hate it. I cannot stand it. It's the way she comes off. I don't care if that's her personality or not, but that makes me dislike you, and I appreciate you, Carmella. But you have Enzo and Cass, they're on Raw, so then you're on SmackDown. You don't really get acknowledged too much. I think, you know, some people are getting it, like she was part of that tag team or faction at one point, but do something else. It really caught me off guard that Carmella did win in the match with the submission move, which I do think it's creative. I always appreciated from the first time that I saw it in NXT, but I'm just not sure. Same thing with the tag division. You know, SmackDown, we've mentioned it based on the draft for Salt. It's the show that's going to be, you got to let it marinate a little bit. You really got to let it progress. You got to let it build into its own thing. Raw, I think, has a more stable roster since day one. With SmackDown, you're missing 2 championships. You can definitely feel that with the women's division as well. So there's not much else I can really say about that until SummerSlam or maybe a little bit afterwards. Now, we finally got over this whole thing between Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar where they're interfering in each other's shows. I like that, finally. They had the outstanding video package with Brock Lesnar talking about Randy Orton on Raw, and I think that you honestly don't need a lot much. I don't think you need more to build this feud, so I'm personally surprised that they put Randy Orton up in a match against Alberto Del Rio, considering the infamous botch, which I'm sure many of us are picturing right now as I say this, where they kind of like did the thing off the top rope, and like I think Del Rio kind of wanted to go Super Saiyan, but it didn't work out. Regardless, we did get this match. I'm once again very surprised. I don't care about Alberto Del Rio. I just don't. I really, really tried for years. I believe he's in that same category with Sheamus, where I know you're talented, you're incredibly solid in the ring, but I just don't care. I don't have that emotional connection whenever they do something out there. So all I can really say is Randy Orton unexpectedly won this match, and he's got his match against Brock Lesnar coming up. This is my favorite part about SmackDown, or one of them, I should say, and that is Heath frickin' Slater. So he is still a free agent. He had an opportunity to get a contract on SmackDown, battling the War Machine, the Man Beast, Rhino, who's also doing politics stuff. That's just freaking incredible simultaneously. But props to him. So, we really do got to give him that. Now, even though that, Heath Slater did lose this match, apparently Dana Bryan and Shane McMahon were willing to offer him a contract for SmackDown. Heath, he was throwing his fit, his hissy fit there. So he just stormed off before he could really find that out. Personally, I'm hoping 2 things happen. If they really want to have fun with this storyline, and I think that even, they're already talking about signing him despite the fact that he has lost. So I don't think they're going to do this. But I would love for him, number one, to have some kind of appearance at Evolve or somewhere. Even if you don't wrestle, just show up somewhere else. You want to have this free agent thing happen. do something with it, or even show up in NXT like a Cruiserweight Classic third wheel that he didn't make it. I don't know, make something up. And another thing would be show up in a podcast. Show up in a podcast like Sam Roberts. Like there are these podcasts that are not WWE produced, but they're affiliated, that they have guests from the current roster. Have something like that. And the same way we had a Broken Matt interview with Chris Jericho in character, have a Heath Slater interview where you're not in character up until the point where, are you employed right now or not with WWE? Have fun with that, because we're not going to get that opportunity ever again. I don't remember the last time they did this. We got something similar with Matt Hardy, with Juan Cena. That lasted a whole 2 weeks. Apollo Crews are not to be confused with Apollo Creed, as the number one contender for the IC Championship. Now, I was very happy to see that they're developing the storyline between Baron Corbin and Kalisto, because Baron Corbin, honestly, I'm still not 100% sold on him. I think he has progressed a lot, and it's only a matter of time before he finally clicks, and I think that this type of feud is what he needs. Give him the ultimate underdog, somebody that is incredibly undersized in comparison to Baron Corbin, and you get to have fun with that. My favorite type of matches are when you have the David and Goliath ones, not with Big Show and Rey Mysterio, where the size difference is so there, where one of them is just so slow. Baron Corbin is pretty agile. He's pretty quick for a guy his size, but then Kalisto is just lightning quick, and he needs to really shine, because being in a tag team with Sin Cara just hurt him dramatically, and Kalisto deserves so much more. And I love me some lucha things. So maybe a lucha thing is that they have a match. Maybe it's going to be like a post or like a pre-show match at SummerSlam. And then it builds on to bigger, better things. And talking about the main event here on SmackDown, we had the tag team match between Dolph Ziggler and Dean Ambrose taking on the Wyatt family, Eric Rowan and Bray Wyatt. Now, it was your standard tag team match. I'm still not really sold on Dolph Ziggler. It's a similar case, as I mentioned, with Del Rio, where for so many years you're used to something happening. I have the same situation with Zack Ryder, where I was a woo-woo-woo fan for a while. I don't have any of my Zack Ryder gear or things around here with me, but you deal with disappointment so long that you just become spectacle. I would love a spectacle. You become skeptical about what they're going to do with the character. And I care about Dean Ambrose. I will say that. We talked about the Stone Cold podcast with Dean Ambrose on the podcast this week, so make sure to check out Tuesday's episode. But it was nice to, just see Dean Ambrose get the upper hand on Dolph Ziggler after Ziggler kicked Eric Rowan for the win. Now, I got to immediately move to Talking Smack. This thing, my favorite part of SmackDown became Talking Smack. Now, I will point out this is the first time that I watched Talking Smack in full. It's not a long show. It's 30 minutes, but last week I had to edit the podcast, so I didn't have time to really watch any of this. But what a show, and it is the weirdest show or weirdest thing WWE is doing today, because, the Stone Cold podcast is largely off character. But then you have the Raw pre-shows, like the different pre-shows, post-shows for pay-per-views. But then there's Talking Smack, and you can tell Daniel Bryan doesn't really have like a reference point, like a thing to say. Renee Young is definitely the one that gets the lines, like she gets the feeder lines, like okay, this is the guideline, and then Daniel Bryan sort of gets to have fun. And the two interesting topics that I had here are, number one, Eva Marie. She showed up, like The Miz also did, but that was just really awkward in the end. But the Eva Marie thing was just something else, because they get to call her out, and this is something that I'm hoping they keep doing. And I know that maybe they want to keep things differently for Raw, but having a show where right after they're done, you get to get the justification for why something happened or something like that is awesome, where you get the character development right after, and it transitions over. It's not like the podcast, like Sam Roberts, Chris Jericho, Stone Cold can interview anybody, but it's off character, and it does not affect the actual show. So that enjoyment factor of like, oh man, what they're talking about here is directly going to affect the show, it doesn't happen, but it does here. So like Daniel Bryan starts calling out Eva Marie. Who do you think is boring? Why did this happen? And I'm not sure if he was told to say that, but Eva Marie, acting aside, you could tell she was in character, but she was also concerned about the answer. And at one point she said, I can't, like, I'm just paraphrasing, but she said, like, I can't go back against my heel female partners and all that, like, you know, referring to, like, the Natalias, the heel division. And I was like, wait, but you're talking about heels, but this is like an in-character thing, but by you saying heel, you're kind of like breaking that fourth wall. And then she answered Carmella, but it didn't make any sense. Like, she said that Carmella was boring because she did too much, but I'm not really sure. Like, irritating, obnoxious, cringy, those words come to mind when I think about Carmella. Not necessarily boring, but I think that maybe this is an opportunity for WWE to go, okay, the fans complain, I should say, about, you know, us over-scripting what we do. So here's an opportunity. Here's an outline. The show just happened. You know the story. Go out there. Go to that interview station and talk to Dana Bryan and Renee Young and just fill in the gaps until next week. But you got to be careful because whatever you say could have some sort of implication. So we may see that next week if Carmella makes a reference to what Eva Marie said or something. And then the next thing is how they openly refer to the Brock Lesnar podcast. So once again, like, there's this fine line between in character, off character, talking about, you know, the whole awkwardness that happened, whereas SmackDown is a chill show. It's crazy how Dana Bryan, we say, and you know, I've been an advocate of this, that he's not the best speaker, like when he goes out there in the ring, but when you're able to just say, Dana Bryan, you're the GM, so talk like the GM, and you get to take shots at Raw, and he is thriving with that very, very successfully, and I am super happy about that, and I hope that they're able to keep that going. So overall, I gotta say that it was a very unique episode of SmackDown in the sense that, you know, it goes to show how important guys like AJ Styles and John Cena are when you remove them from the show. Sure, you got the video package, but they are probably the main reason that you do watch SmackDown. So I would love to get your thoughts about SmackDown. Make sure to drop a comment. Check out our podcast available every single Tuesday night. And should we name these review shows? Like, I'm not sure, but if we do, I would think we should call it like Smack. It's on screen. Like, I try. We're called Byte That. It's, you know, Talking Smack is already a thing. Smack Talks is already an awesome YouTube channel. So maybe that. But regardless, I am enjoying this brand split. It's a challenge for us as a YouTube channel to be able to cover everything based on all the things we do. But you're more than welcome to join in the conversation. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/ByteThat, and check out our other videos, including a spotlight series on the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, because we love that guy. You can check that out. It is on screen right now. So until next time, thank you for watching, and we will be back with tons more right here on Byte That.